Oh, yes, it's 11:05. So, good morning, everybody. So, my name is Mohammed Razeen. I represent Trinexia as a distributor in the region. Before we start this webinar, I just want to let you know, guys, please feel free to ask any questions, including what I had for breakfast. So, I just want it to be very interactive. So, I know it's late in the 11 o'clock in the morning. So, I know you guys are busy, but if we have this session interactive, it can be, it can be better for all of us. So that's the agenda. So I'll just do a quick introduction of who we are. So I represent the company called Trinexia, which is a pan-EMEA value-added distributor focused on cybersecurity and digital forensic solutions. So today we are collaborating with our leading vendor called PICUS Security, who are a pioneer in breach and attack simulation. So PICUS is a complete security control validation platform, which is trusted by leading organizations in the world, including banks, BFSI, and even SMBs as well. So the idea is to help the security analyst or the CISO to understand whether their security posture is in their control, or if they require, whether there is a blind spot in your environment where you need the right controls to keep, to efficiently, protect your environment. So I would like to introduce, on behalf of PICUS Security, I would like to introduce Tarek. So Tarek is a regional director for PICUS Security. He has a rich experience of over 18 years in the market. So he'll give you an overview on how this solution works and what is the agenda of this webinar today. And I also have Daniel Monahan and from the channel side. So he's the channel account manager for PICUS, and Mohammed Matar from the technical perspective as well. So Tarek, I would like to take this, and you can take this forward from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Razeen, for the introduction. Really appreciate it. I hope I'm audible. Everyone can hear me. So let's start, I think, to give more time for the team to introduce themselves. So let me start with Dan. Dan, if you can give us an overview of your career, what brought you to cybersecurity? Let's the audience understand with whom they're speaking with. That would be helpful. I think you're still on mute.
Yeah. You'd think we'd learn by now, but my name is and I'm the channel manager for PICUS in covering Middle East and Africa, based out of Dubai. I've been with PICUS now for 2 years, following on from multiple years in cybersecurity distribution, covering many different vendors across lots of different platforms. But I'm now with PICUS, gratefully so, and we hope to bring to you today a really exciting proposition, but more of an education and, as Razeen said earlier, an open discussion. Please use the chat function to ask any questions throughout, but looking forward to today with you. And I'll hand over to my colleague, Mohammed Matar.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, so quickly, my name is Mohammed Matar. I'm a senior sales engineer in PICUS Security. I've been in the company for 1 year now, and I have experience of around 10 years in cybersecurity. I've worked with different vendors and different technologies, and I think a bit of my experience is a bit relevant to our topic today around the security operations. I worked with many SIEM vendors in the past, and I have some good of I think a good amount of experience in that area. I've also worked with companies that do penetration testing and security assessment, and that's why it's very relevant to the breach and attack simulation field. And hopefully we have a good session today.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mata. Really appreciate it. So, the main purpose of the tour today, we have this discussion and conversation, sharing more insight from the market, the challenges that we see, and we hope we can provide value for you right now. Over my career, I've seen cybersecurity evolve. I remember when we started in security, you couldn't count more than 8 vendors in the industry. Right now, you can easily count over 4,000 different technology providers and vendors in the market. And with that, it's a bigger opportunity, but at the same time, it's an overwhelming engagement with customers to really reach in a state for the organization to be able to improve their cybersecurity postures and so forth. So let's initially start by getting your initial feedback, and at that time we'll call for the first poll in the session. Would really appreciate. So we'll share right now a question. We would love to see your input on that and see how we can drive, based on the feedback, the discussion today. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Matar, on the responses?
Well, yeah, I can see like the one that I think that is very relevant, I think, to everybody is the what to do with the new threats, right? And also quantifying security effectiveness. I think also that's one of the biggest use cases that we see in the market. We can see also people looking at security misconfiguration, also a very important point, because everybody trusts this technology, but the configuration itself of how you configure that technology is a different story. A lack of visibility for sure. No one said alert fatigue so far. Cool, but I think these are quite interesting results where the new threats, I think, this takes the toll here.
Very nice, very nice. Like quite interesting feedback. So let's share then more insight on what research says in cybersecurity, which is quite interesting because we can easily walk through the details of the challenges and like what organizations are facing these days and the teams are facing across different industries or geographies. But it's really clear that cybersecurity is broken as we see right now. So, for example, cybersecurity ventures, they released the research on the cost of cybercrime globally. And I still remember that in 2015, they estimated the cost of cybercrime costing the world about $3 trillion. And this year, I think they are estimating it at about $8 trillion. And if we look, and from a GDP perspective, that would represent about the third largest economy globally in terms of the cost of economy. But also at the same time, which is quite interesting on, I think, the second point here on the slide, which is when you ask organization about they have invested in these different security controls or tools over the last couple of years, they build their security operations centers. They try to evolve in their not only the peoples and the process but also the technology. It's really shocking when you see that about 80% of the organization, they say that they are not confident with what they have and they don't feel safe with all this investment that they have done over the year. And it's really quite shocking in that regard. And one of the initiatives over the last couple of years was building the security operations centers, right? So we've seen that operation has evolved over the last couple of years. We remember what is known as the Security Operations Center version 1. Then we saw this next generation Security Operations Center. We saw what even threat analysts, they started to call it the autonomous security operations centers over the last couple of years. And the organization has evolved in different way in order to improve their efficiency on how they can manage their security. Some organization even they started deploy it internally. Some of them they started to use third party to outsource the SOC operation services in that regard. But that brings us actually to the second poll when it comes to the cybersecurity operation. We would love to get your feedback on that and then see what research says in terms of the challenges when it comes to the cybersecurity operation.
Yeah, pen testing, red teaming for sure. Vulnerability scanning, absolutely. That I think the oldest service of them all. Yeah, pen testing again. Yeah, I think obviously we gave the option to just select one, but it's a bit unfair because I think I think most organizations will be using like a combination of these things, not just one. But maybe we're asking for like the most important one that you think is a bit crucial for the assessment.
Yeah, quite interesting in that regard. So let's see, in terms of research, what research says when it comes to the security operations. So we've done a research last year. We generated a very interesting report. It's called Blue Report of 2023. Please feel free to visit our website to download it. It's publicly available, which has lots of enriching insight in terms of the cybersecurity operations. But what's quite interesting in that research is that when we evaluated the SOC operations across the organization, about 40% of the organization, they were able to collect the correct logs that is related to an attacks that they are facing. So you can imagine 60% of the data that is being collected is actually irrelevant for the attacks that they see it. Looking into even the SOC operation right now, the amount of investment these organizations they take in terms of how they store these data, how they maintain it, how they keep these database and information up and running in the right way to maximize the outcome. And the second interesting point is really that only 16% of the attacks triggered the alert in a timely manner, which means, like most of these alerts, either false positive or it's delayed alert, or even, the whole alert has not been, triggered in that regard. With all these, shocking, I think, insight, when we looked into more details on what they say about their challenges, these three things appeared more vividly in terms of the reports. The first one is the visibility. SOC operators, analysts, they're struggling with having the right visibility within their environment. Blind spot are increasing, especially with the overwhelming amount of vendors that is being incorporated within the security operation. The second thing is the assurance and the confidence, and this is where it really aligns with, I think, the first slide we discussed, is that they still, with all these technology that they're using, they're not confident that actually their processes, their tools are actually providing the right outcome that they expected from these investment. And the third one is the staffing and the burnout of the team. I think, what is known a couple of years ago on the alert fatigues, the vendor fatigues, and right now we see even staffs are struggling in terms of maintaining the work within the SOC. I think one of the interesting comments I've heard about, in my career is that security team in the SOC are overwhelmed with the task and operation that they have, and they are getting burned slowly like a candle over time. And that's quite shocking because, we don't think, SOC operation will disappear anytime soon. And there is a major value for these operations to provide. So Motar, would love to get your feedback on these insights. What's your thought in that regard?
Yeah, I think these statistics are very, very accurate. I've been there. I worked with customers like in banks and telco sectors and even commercial and oil and gas sectors, and they all have the same kind of pain. The first thing, that the way that actually the SIM would work and SOC operation would work is actually you need visibility, right? So so in order to get this kind of visibility, you need to collect logs from every possible log source. And depending on the complexity of your environment, this becomes more and more painful. And also, when it comes to the SIM vendors themselves, they actually charge you for the kind of log retention that you need to have. So you have this cost optimization thing that where you say, all right, I don't need to collect these type of logs. I have 5,000 endpoints. It doesn't make sense that I collect every log from every log source, or all of the different workstations and different servers. And people would make compromise. And obviously that would, at the end of the day, would have an impact on the visibility that they need. The SOC and the SIM vendors would sell themselves that they will give you the right visibility. But when it comes to charging and pricing, everybody would just be reluctant to collect everything, to have log retention for everything. And even the log retention itself, I think all vendors, they have this same concept where they have warm storage and cold storage. Warm storage is something that is ready, that is quick, that will search quickly, it will give you the results very quickly. But the other one that is a bit archived, where you need to go to a specific log retention server and in order to look for the logs that you need. So that actually makes things more and more complex. However, that process of the logging is a bit difficult. the alerting is even more and more challenging, because for that you need not just the right logs, but you need also the right correlation rules. You need the right expertise to understand what is the attacker objectives, what are the kind of TTPs that are going to use, and all of that. And you need to combine all of this into a correlation rule, into a use case that you need to implement in order to trigger the right alert for you. So that's why we see that only 16% of the threats are triggered, and we do see the same thing when it comes to PICUS and running the breach and attack simulation, which we will come to in a while. But yeah, I 100% agree with the statistics here.
Mantar, I remember, I think in almost 10, 11 years ago in 2013, the NSA released statement saying one of their challenges that they are collecting too much data, right? They are overwhelmed with this data, and as a result, they become less effective than they should be compared to what they see. And that aligned really on that regard. So what do you think the right balance should be in that regard?
Yeah, that's absolutely important. I think here this slide is really nice when it comes to what's knowledge and what's awareness, right? So every SOC would have this combination. People who have the right knowledge, they've been trained well, they understand what are the different kind of TTPs that they should be looking for. They understand the things from the attacker perspective, and also there is the awareness, the people who have the experience, the exposure, because as any job, cybersecurity is about the right experience. Once you've seen that incident before, you know what to do, then you have the right thing to do, and know what actually to do exactly. So here we have this kind of diagram that shows what threats, or when you have the right knowledge, when you know the right knowledge, and when you have the right awareness, then you're in good shape for sure. But what if you have the right knowledge, but you don't have the awareness? You've never been exposed to that. I think PICUS really fits into that, and the breach and attack simulation fit into that, because it will really give you the right TTPs. It will show you, because if you have the awareness, you've seen things, but you need more knowledge. You need more information about the kind of threats, the kind of TTPs, what do threat actors really do. It's absolutely important, and it will greatly enhance the SOC in general. Where also you have the unknown unknowns, which is the scariest thing, but also having the right idea in mind, and also know what you should be looking for. And looking for the tools that will actually help you find that right balance and gain as much knowledge as possible, and the awareness will come with the right training and the right experience for sure.
So Mantar, you touch on a very interesting point on when you're discussing, on the slide. So you mentioned regarding the breach and attack simulation, or the whole concept of the breach and attack simulation. I would really appreciate if you can just shed more light on what does it mean, what is that, what it does do. That would be very helpful for our audience.
Yeah. So basically, the breach and attack simulation is a technology that is designed to enhance everything else. People have invested, and organizations have invested in hundreds of technologies, including on the prevention layer, on the detection layer. And we see new technologies come up all the time. The cybersecurity is evolving, the attackers are evolving, and cybersecurity field is evolving consequently. But the thing is, as a customer, as an organization, I have all of these tools, all of these technologies, but I don't really know, and I have no clear idea if these controls are enough. Do I need more? That's the question. What should I do? What's the priority should be? And all of these questions are really important, and that's why the breach and attack simulation is about that. And you can see here on the graph, you can see that red ball on the left, that represents the kind of threats, the evolving threat landscape. We see new threats all of the time, and PICUS would do exactly that. We have a red team that is responsible for developing these kind of threats, and we do we do build them very, very frequently. So we update our threat library on a daily basis. So imagine that every time you log into PICUS, you'll see the latest threats added to your platform within less than 24 hours. So once you have that ready, then you have the arsenal that you need, all right? And then you have your prevention layers and detection layers. And then we go ahead and launch these attacks towards those layers. And then we find out, we will report back to you what kind of attacks were blocked, what kind of attacks were not blocked. And on the detection perspective, what was logged from from logging perspective, and what was alerted as well, and which were not. So you'll begin to have clear visibility of what is going on, what's the efficacy of each and every control that you have in the environment. And slowly but surely you'll be able, and not actually slowly, but if we take it, we can say gradually, you'll see the evolution of how you can make things better and how you can enhance your overall efficacy when it comes to prevention and detection. So that's
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, Motor, on the concept of the BAS or breach and attack simulation. On top of that, within the history of the SOC operation, there is a concept that is being discussed a lot on that, what is known as the detection engineering. I remember organization they used to use, for example, Excel files before in order to align the telemetries or the logs that's been collected. Then after that, they started using SIM solution. And even I remember these days they used to call it the SEIM solution, and then they call it SIEM based on the analyst vendors on that time. And then more and more tools started to add in their environment. But what is really detection engineering? What is it all about? And what does it really do?
Yeah, detection engineering is simply around optimization of everything, right? Because we've seen the challenges. We've seen how difficult it is to keep the right log sources, to collect the right logs, and also to write the right queries and correlation rule that will help you with the alert and detections of the different TTPs and different threats. So basically, detection engineering is. I'll tell you an example from my experience that what the customers would do, right? So a customer would purchase a SIM technology, or maybe they have it for a while, and then they use the out-of-the-box use cases, the out-of-the-box correlation rules that are already configured, but they find out that it doesn't cover all of the threats. I have some gaps here. So they would do one of two things: either depend on their internal resources, on their engineers and their SOC operation in order to make sure that they are collecting the right logs, and also that they understand what kind of malicious actions that they need to cover. Maybe they have faced an alert before, or a security alert before, or an incident before, and they need to be ready next time, right? So they would write these correlation rules depending on their experience and what they have seen in the market. But that is also not enough. So maybe they would hire a third-party company that is a bit more specialized in the optimization and configuration of the SIMs and developing of these correlation rules. And when you think about it, it would. So I would engage in these kind of scenarios, and I would tell you that in order to complete like 40 correlation rules that would cover like 40 different threats, it would take around between maybe 3 to 4 months. That's my experience. That's what I've seen. So 3 to 4 months just to write 40 correlation rules, which is obviously not enough as well. But from the perspective at the time, it would be like, these are the most important ones. I'll begin with those. And then after that is done, then, all right, so I have the correlation rules ready. I'm good, right? No, you need to make sure that they actually work. So I have seen customers who would hire third-party companies to do like red teaming exercises or pen testing, but more or less red teaming, like to do some atomic tests and try to find out if these threats will actually trigger the alerts and correlation rules that were written on the SIM. So you see how much money you've invested and how much time you've invested just to develop these 30 correlation rules. So it would be the detection engineering is to be around the optimization of all that, and we've seen that done. How it's done in a manual way. We'll see in a while how that can be a bit automated and enhance the things in a very different way.
Which is quite interesting, especially right now. We started to hear more from organizations that they're looking for what they say the outcome-based security in terms of a result. They're looking more into the improvement of their existing tools, operations, and so forth to make cybersecurity, unit as a business enabler than a cost, center for the organization. So from your point of view, in terms of how can organization really improve their detection engineering?
Yeah, it's very simple, yeah. So, or not very simple. It's obvious, but how to apply it is not very simple, right? So the first thing that you need to see is that you need to identify the blind spots, right? And the blind spots is around that maybe you have missing loop sources. You need also to be quick. You need to understand the latest TTPs in the market and the most important ones. The critical ones, you need to be able to develop the right correlation rules for them. You should have the ability to test them very quickly, and it's all about time. Time is absolutely crucial in that area. Reducing the false positive for sure, in order to make sure that the outcome is the best outcome possible, not to waste time anymore on false positives, and also, of course, be able to detect the attackers as early as possible. Also, the MITRE attack is absolutely important as well. We can see everybody is trying to comply with the MITRE attack framework. We've seen how every compliance now is pushing towards that, and actually it's very helpful, and it's very important that once you get the things from the MITRE attack perspective, you see the things from the attacker perspective as well, and you'll be prepared and know what to do once you have an issue, and also know the gaps. So no one says that you'll be compliant 100% and you'll be able to block each and every TTP possible, but step by step, that you have these gaps. You'll work on solving them and be able to either block them or at least detect them if they happen.
So we looked quite interesting during the session, Matar, on the breach and attack simulation. We discussed the detection engineering, but it's quite interesting to see how research firms like IDC and Gartner view this industry and how it's evolving. If we look to comparable industry, we've seen how over the years on the endpoint security, we used to have the antivirus, then we had the next gen AV. And then after that, EDR came up. And then within the last 2 years, we started to see the whole concept of XDR. And the research, companies, they really also aligned in that regard. So even in our sector, they see that the sector is evolving in what Gartner's define it as the continuous threat exposure management, or what IDC define it as the threat exposure management. In order to provide more a unified view for addressing multiple challenges within the organization. And really, PICUS is really aligned in this regard. So we're coming out from our DNA when it comes to the breach and attack simulation in order to answer a very simple question, as you mentioned, like, is my security control really working? Are they delivering the value that they claim to do? And this is where this capability provide. We touch point into the detection engineering, but also the platform provide additional capabilities like the automated pen testing that focus on finding ways on how the attacker would be able to move laterally within the organization, or how they're going to be able to escalate privileges within my environment, or how they're going to be able to reach to my Active Directory to address multiple use cases within the environment. But also it addresses, the cloud security validation to understand the security posture of the cloud. How is the IAM going on the cloud? How is the secure encryption management is going on within my cloud assets. Do I have any exposed asset through my cloud with the packet, for example, on AWS and so forth? And with the attack surface, management module, that is not focused on, it's not about like a building additional scanning tool, but it's more about hooking on your existing tool to provide this visibility. And all of that is provided on a modular perspective. On our topics today, we'll discuss more into the breach and attack simulation and the detection engineering. So it would be very helpful to see that, Motar, how does that works in action? So if you can share with us more details on how the platform works, how it can help security operations centers in terms of, improve their detection engineerings and, be more confident on their security control, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see the screen now. All right. So yeah, basically, when you log into PICUS, you get to see this kind of dashboard. This is what we call the CISO dashboard. We show all of the different modules that Tariq have just shown. And I want to start with the security control validation, where you get to see, once you look into that, you get to see two main dashboards. The first one shows you the prevention results, and the second one shows you the detection results. That's what we were just saying about quantifying things, right? To be able to know what's the current efficacy of your prevention score and detection result score. And many of our customers now use these kind of results as KPIs for the SOC, KPIs for their information security, because we see a very big challenge when it comes to CISOs and SOC managers is how do they report back to the management? You see, because the other teams, like the network teams, the applications teams, they have tangible things that they can show to the customer, right? They can say that I've added new services, I've done this, I've added like new branches, I've expanded my bandwidth and on all of that. But from a security perspective, it's not really that straightforward, right? And PICUS would be the best way to flip that, to show that, all right, during the last quarter or last year, we've enhanced our security posture by that amount. We have even like increased our detection by that amount. We were able to mitigate more than 500 different threats, or maybe 1,000 threats over the last month. And we will see how PICUS will really enhance that in a while. Obviously, this is a kind of the same graph that shows the prevention score and detection score, but it's showing it over time. And also, this is a very big differentiator between PICUS and other tools or other services like pen testing and red teaming, where PICUS you can actually run all of the time, continuously. And we've seen people on the poll, they said that it's the security misconfiguration. It was a very interesting one. So security misconfiguration is obviously a very tough topic to deal with. I'll tell you an example. We were running a simulation once, and we had the score around 70%. And then it dropped all of a sudden to from 70 to 30%, all of a sudden overnight. So when we investigated further, it was actually because of misconfigurations. It was someone that switched off the SSL inspection policy on a firewall. And a customer would say, I would never have known that. I would never have imagined that, and that someone has done that. They obviously done it by mistake. But PICUS would really help accelerate detection of these kind of misconfiguration. You get an email notification right away telling you what has gone wrong, and then you'll be able to work on fixing it.
Then we comes across different technology here, Motar. So
yeah, for sure. As long as the misconfiguration will impact or will impact the efficacy of the control itself, PICUS will be able to detect it automatically. I'm not a security auditing tool or a configuration review tool, but for sure we are validating them for what they are supposed to do, which is blocking threats. So as long as the misconfiguration can impact the ability of the solution itself to block the threats, PICUS will be able to show it immediately. So here is the breakdown of the modules for sure. So PICUS is obviously a very modular product, and it's very complete as well in terms of the current of type of threats that we cover. So we have the network infiltration attacks, where we do vulnerability exploitation attacks and file download attacks. The web application attacks that includes OWASP, top 10, and thousands and thousands of other web application attacks as well to validate your web application firewall, and email infiltration for sure to validate the email gateway to see if the email gateway itself is able to block the malicious URLs and malicious attachments. Also, we have 3 flavors of endpoint on Windows, Linux, and macOS, as well as exfiltration attacks. What's really also quite nice is that you gain this kind of visibility as well, just to be able to see each and every control in the environment, how effective are they, and from very simple look, you can see actually what's going on. And you can see what kind of controls that are underperforming or that are doing quite well. And you'll be able to report back. You can actually compare as well different products. So we've seen one of the use cases that the customers would use is during POC. So if you have 3 vendors from like EDRs, you can actually compare between them. You can see the results, and you can see how effective are they when it comes to blocking of specific threats. So it's a good view to be able to see these kind of things.
Very good. You mentioned in terms of the cloud, the security control validation, but where does the detection and engineering falls here, Mukhtar?
Yeah, so the detection engineering is around the same, right? So we've seen this. We can see, for example, a QRadar is showing here. We're showing how many alerts are actually being logged, how many are not logged, and on the alert side, how many are alerted and how many are not alerted. Right. So we do that very simply with like direct integration with the SIEM and EDR. We've done the same thing with Sentinel here. Of course, this is a demo environment, and some EDRs like CrowdStrike and Sentinel-1 and Splunk. So you can see very, very simply with very straightforward API integration that takes few minutes to set up. All we need is like a read-only access, and we'll be able to gain visibility. Look at the logs. So if I run, for example, an SQL injection attack at 5 p.m., PICUS would query the SIEM looking for the logs that we should be expecting after 5 p.m. And be able to pull these logs and show you this attack was actually logged and this was the log. And also we can show you a timeline. So maybe the attack happened at 5 p.m., but the log came a little bit early, a little bit late, like 5:10, for example. So we show.
So you're mentioning here, you're not only being proactive in simulating this attack, but the platform is able to show me what type of attack has been detected, what type has been logged, and what's being alerted, and what is the timeline for that activity to happen. So if I need to rephrase it, you're showing me what problems I have. Do you give me a solution for these problems?
Absolutely. So here is what we need to do. Simply, we know how difficult it is for the mitigations things. So PICUS will do 2 things. We have the mitigations for prevention tools, and we have mitigation for detection tools. The prevention for prevention tools is very simple. So here you can see products like Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Fortinet, and all of these. And you can see, for example, that Palo Alto is able to block 86% of the threats, and there are 68 attacks that are not blocked at the moment. So all you need to do is to go to signatures, click on any of these attacks, you'll see the right signature that you need to add into Palo Alto, right? So imagine, Tariq, if you have a pen test. If I used to work in a pen testing company, as I said in the beginning. So if you get a report that has 68 kind of findings and you need to fix all of them, if you ask, maybe we should have added that to the poll as well. How much time will it take you to actually block them, right? Because the pen testing report or the red teaming report will only give you generic stuff, and the generic things can be like you need to patch your system to overcome that vulnerability, right? It looks simple, but the application of that is not simple at all. It's a very lengthy process. According to many reports, it takes 100 days to fix a vulnerability. So PICUS fixes that very, very easily by simply focusing on the controls, by making sure. So even though I'm not able to maybe patch the current vulnerability that I have in my web application at the moment, but I can apply the kind of signature, the kind of mitigation, actionable mitigation right away on my F5 big IP, for example, or my Citrix WAF, right?
So
So
you're
I can
showing
do that.
here, Matar, like the firewall you're showing on the WAF as an example. It's more aesthetic, rules you're adding here. But like if I look to SOC operation, usually they're heavily dependent on SIEM technology, XDR right now, or even EDR. Would that technology be able to help to address, like these gaps within these technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. When it comes to more sophisticated attacks, different kind of TTPs that happen on the endpoint, things are not as simple as just copying mitigation and adding it to your firewall or your WAF. And that's why we do what we do, and we provide correlation rules and detections, mitigations for the SIEM and EDR technologies. So, for example, we can see here a scheduled task. A scheduled task is the creation by a trick bot. Trick bot would create a scheduled task. That's a very common kind of technique that the attackers use, is that they try to schedule a task to gain persistence on a specific machine, or maybe to execute things on a repeated task every day, and so on. So once you click on that, what you can see here, we are providing, so here we chose Splunk as an example. So we're showing the query, the correlation rule that you need to add into Splunk. And by the way, this is Splunk SBL. That's the common language used by Splunk and the regex used by Splunk. So as a SOC analyst, all you need to do is to copy that correlation rule, add it into Splunk. Not only that, but we also tell you what kind of log sources that you need to have. We've mentioned that sometimes customers don't know what kind of log sources that they need to look for. So here we provide the log source that is needed, and also the kind of service of the log that is actually required. We also show things about like a specific group policy that may be required. And for the correlation rule itself, we will tell you if it can generate false positive or not. That's also on the kind of knowledge level that we try to enhance, and also a description of the rule itself and how it works.
Is this limited only to Splunk here, Matar, or?
Of course not. We have other vendors as well, and we have Sigma rules. Sigma rules are quite universal. You can apply them to any kind of SIEM, any kind of regex. So if you're using a different SIEM, it's very simple. There are tons of tools online that will convert that Sigma rule, and the SOC team work with Sigma rules every day. So these Sigma rules are quite universal, and they can be applied to any kind of SIEM very easily. But yeah, so it's not about this as well. The last thing that I want to say here, Tariq, is that once you apply this correlation rule, how do you know that it works? Simple. Just run a simulation. It would take a few minutes, and you'll see but with your own eyes if it actually triggers an alert or not. And if not, you'll try to optimize it and make sure that it works. Maybe there was something wrong with the log source, maybe something wrong with the syntax, and so far and so on. By the way, also we can go even further than that with the DRP. I'm not going to go into details around this, but I just very quickly, it will show you like a SIEM hygiene. It will go further than that, not just about detections, but it will look at every correlation rule that you have. It will do some kind of analysis, and it will tell you where are the issues. Maybe you have log sources that have never triggered alerts before because they have missing log sources. They will never work, right? Maybe others that have excessive use of wildcards and they are generating lots of false positives. Also not so good. So it will help you really enhance that in a very effective way. We think that it's absolutely empowering for the SOC, and every SOC operation should be using this kind of approach. It will save much time. It will save much money as well.
Matar here, would it generate false positive? Would it create more headache for the SOC team?
On the contrary, it's actually it's the other way around. It will reduce the kind of false positives. It will help optimize the operation. It will also help optimize the kind of the log sources themselves. As you said, it can be the log sources themselves can be overwhelming. So we should be collecting the logs that we actually need for TTPs. So it will greatly enhance all of that and not add further.
Yeah, as you know, if we're looking up to the SIEM, there is multiple approach, multiple vendors operating into that space. Each one has a different approach on how they collect log, how they analyze it, how they process it. In that case, how you can make sure that this technology actually works properly with my SIEM? It doesn't cause problem. It understand and communicate properly with the SIEM.
Yeah. So once we do the integration, so we have a blue team that is thankfully working with all of these vendors. They work on optimization of everything, making sure that the APIs are done perfectly and we are collecting the right queries and we're doing the right job. So we test that every day, and we do work on adding more and more correlation rules, more and more R&D into these platforms in order to guarantee that. And when it comes to the customer perspective, we can do that during a POC to be able to show that, make sure that things are working as they are supposed to work. And that is always our approach. We test everything, we make sure that everything is working properly, and then it's the customer's decision after all.
Very good, Matar. So it's really interesting, these insights you're providing it from a organization perspective. But I would love to ask Dan here in that regards, because when we look to SOC operations, we've seen multiple companies, they deploy their own SOC. But more and more, we see lots of the organizations start to outsource the SOC operation to to MSSP provider. So for Dan, with your involvement with the channel within the region, do you see there is a value with such kind of technology for the MSSP providers?
Yeah, so I'm seeing more and more of the MSSPs I work with looking for how they can both validate how effective their services are for their end users. The end users want to see firmer and stricter SLAs with the MSSPs that they employ, and they also want validation of the service they're providing. And I'm seeing MSSPs actually being a lot more proactive in terms of the service they're offering, and both using it as an internal validation for their own service, but also as a value add for the end client, where the end client potentially hasn't got the resource to manage it or the expertise in-house to manage it. They're looking for someone to validate the existing stack that they've got. So there's a real growing market out there for both end users demanding that service from the MSSPs that they employ, and also from the MSSPs being a lot more proactive around validating the security stack that they have.
Very good, Dan. So it looks like we're running out of time. We're reaching, almost the end of the top of the hour. But Matar, following this session, if we need to summarize the takeaways of that, what would you say in that regard?
Yeah, that's I think what we need to say here is that from the customer perspective, after all, every customer is feeling the pain. We know how the cybersecurity is. It's not an easy job. It's a bit tough. You have so many challenges, and the challenge of the CISOs and the SOC managers at the moment is to take the right decisions, go where and the decisions that will help them get less busy and be more focused, right? So facing the unknown unknowns, as we said on the beginning, is that you need to have some kind of visibility and assurance, right? You need the right assurance after all. So if you have being able to validate your SIM, validate your EDR, run the kind of scenarios, make sure that you are always prepared. The purple teaming exercises are absolutely crucial, not just about PICUS or a breach and attack simulation, but that's the way things should be, right? If you depend just alone on defenses, without looking at things from the attacker perspective, that is not the right way. And not to forget that you have always to keep improvement, because the threats will, if you run a threat, if you run a kind of assessment, or if you do an assessment today, tomorrow or next week it's going to be different. There are going to be new TTPs in the market, new IUCs in the market, and you need to be always prepared. So the continuous improvement and continuous testing and validation of your controls is the right way to, and the right thing to do. Just look at these things, make sure that you apply them, and it's not going to overwhelm you. On the contrary, it's going to make things more clear. You'll know what you should be looking for, and work on fixing them according to the prioritization and the importance of these kind of attacks, and the severity of these attacks, which is all what we're looking for, is to prevent as much as malicious attacks as possible.
Mata, really appreciate your insight, as well as Dan. Really, thank you very much for your time. I think we've reached to the end of the session. I have lots of questions, but also if the audience have any questions, please feel free to reach out for any clarification. We're happy to set up, more detailed session with the team so they can answer more clearly your questions or clarify it. And that brings us, I think, to the final.
Sorry, Tariq, I just want to intervene. There are two questions on the chat. So our audience already have two questions. So the first one, can you see that? So Bilal is asking, how accurate is the simulation when it comes to triggering FP alerts? And
yeah, so this is, I think we've already touched on that with Motar. So he said, the simulation is already being tested and evaluated and been, confirmed even with the vendors in terms of when we provide the remediation. So it's becoming more like a vendor specific approved. And he touched tools like the detection engineering, the DRV modules is helping to improve the SIEM operation and eliminate the false positive than actually generate false positive within the environment.
Okay, so there's another question. So how threat intel feeds integrate with BAS platform? Which TI feeds PICUS is used to integrate? So that's the second question there.
Yeah, so the threat intelligence integration is very simple. It's just API integration as well. The reason for that integration is that we look into the different IUCs that were actually sent by the threat intelligence vendor to that specific customer. And once we ingest these kind of IUCs, these kind of threats, and these kind of feeds, we aggregate them, and we used a threat intel that would generate threat templates around these kind of IUCs, right? And then you have these threat templates that are designed specifically for you because they are based on your IUCs, and using the PICUS platform to map the attacks that are relevant to them, and then you'll be able to simulate them in the environment. So now you have the IUCs, you know what they are, and you can even run it before and after you try to mitigate those IUCs and be able to see the results with your own eyes. If you are actually being targeted by any of the different APTs that are in the threat feeds, what would be the results? Were you be able to block these kind of attacks? Were you able to detect them or not?
Okay. So I hope I think that answers your questions, Akash, Bilal, and all the audience in the room today. So I would like to thank everybody here, Matar, Tariq, and Dan, and Jay, and everybody in the team, and also our audience who took time for us today to understand how BAS works and how PICUS can help you with this journey. So yeah, thank you. And I think there's another question before I think it's getting interesting. So which TI feed uses its own which TI feeds uses its own or third party? I mean, which TI uses its own or third party?
We use both. The answer is simple. Just both. Yeah. So we have our own threat feeds, and also we integrate with third parties as well to ingest their feeds into PICUS.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you. Okay, guys, I think we are. I think it's the end of the session now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in. And if you guys would like, if you have more questions or directly reach out to us, please, you can reach out to the PICUS security team, or you can reach out to us. We would love to meet you guys. We want to meet in person. You want to meet, call, or a call. We are always there for you guys. Just to let you know, PICUS has one of the best people on the ground. So they have more than 5 people on the ground in the Middle East region. So feel free to ping us. We are here to support you on your journey. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Razeen.